Good afternoon. My name is Catherine Murray, and I was also at the Langley Research Facility with Joe last summer. And I'll start by telling you a little bit about myself in pictures. I'm a graduate of Drew University with a BA in physics, and I also have my master's in education from Boston College. I've been a teacher in the Boston Public Schools for 11 years now, teaching physics and math and even some computer classes. And yes, I am a Boston Red Sox fan, even though I grew up in New Jersey. I think it's going to be this year again, if you're wondering. Next slide. And the first question I thought about when I was putting together this presentation was, why did I decide to apply to this professional development program? I actually managed to find a picture. This is the book that I carried with me everywhere I went as a child. It was the Charlie Brown Encyclopedia featuring stars and planets. And it's been something I've been interested in ever since I was a little kid. But when I thought about it, you know, that was definitely my interest as a little kid, but how did that continue for me as I went through my life, and what led me to become a science teacher was really the experiences I had in school as a kid. You know, my teachers had this love for what they were doing, and I was able to experience that through them. And it's something that I strive to do for my students, and to really make what I do interesting to them. So, next slide. I'll tell you a little bit of, you know, Joe's covered a lot of what we did while we were there, but I did this in bullets, so you can go through that. First of all, it's really, really cool to spend 2 weeks with a bunch of people who are interested in the same nerdy things that you are interested in. And as science teachers, it's sometimes very isolating to be in a school with people who are always talking about English classes and what are we reading and all these different types of things. So to be able to spend 2 weeks being really nerdy and making jokes and actually have people laugh at them, big A+. Of course, there's the resources, all of the activities that we did. So Joe's talked about some of them. The wealth of materials that are available through NASA that I had no idea existed until I went to this professional development program. It's just overwhelming and unbelievable. And to be able to have somebody kind of start you off on that path and see what they are and find out what's out there and learn how to find them and use them is just really valuable. Seeing the facility, like Joe said, we saw amazing things while we were there. And I didn't actually land a 747, I did it in a simulator, but it was still really cool to sit in the cockpit of a 747 and land a plane, and I tell you, it was pretty realistic. I did. It might have been a little bit of drift, but I landed, and I didn't hit a tanker like somebody else did. Oh, this is my last thing on this slide, excuse me. Like Joe said, professional development is something that strikes fear in the heart of every teacher, and there are two things that make professional development really exciting for teachers. And the first one is it has to be engaging, and it has to get you excited about what it is that you do. And to be able to spend time feeling like a kid again and running around and doing science experiments and really getting involved, it's one of the two most important things about professional development. Get the teachers excited. The second thing, the next part is, as a teacher, I want to walk away with something useful. I don't want to feel like I spent 2 weeks that I could have spent either on the beach relaxing or doing something else to get ready for the next school year. So what this program did in particular that was so good was to take teachers, pair them up with mentors, and to be able to walk out of a 2-week session with lessons that I had created, that I had the support from scientists and knew they were good, it was good educational material, and bring them back to my classroom in a way that I was really excited to do. And I think that's the second part that makes this experience truly powerful. So if you can go to the next slide. So this is kind of, I meant it a little bit as a joke, but you know, here I am, a physics teacher in a high school in Boston. I'm working with the minority population. I'm working with students who have interruptions in formal education. 30% of my school are English language learners. 30% of my school are special needs students. You know, constructing a distance versus time graph can be a struggle at times. And then you have my mentor, Sharon Padula, who works in the research, she was a research scientist in the aeronautic system analysis branch. And I heard that and I read it on a piece of paper and I was like, I don't know what this person is going to tell me that's going to help me, but maybe we can have an interesting conversation. And the really cool part about Sharon is she's very down to earth and she really understood what we were trying to do in the classroom. Sharon is a person that, instead of working on a big project, works in partnership with other people who are doing projects, and her specialty is optimization. So she's worked on things like creating sound dampers in airplanes, and where do you position them as you construct a plane so that somebody sitting in a seat isn't sitting in the middle of a hurricane. She's worked on looking at the trajectory of a helicopter as it lands and what path can it follow to create the least amount of noise on the ground. And so that's the area that she worked with. So we sat down, my partner Kelly and I, with her on our very first day and started to talk about optimization. And because iRobot was one of our partners, we started talking about the Roomba. And if you don't know, the Roomba is an autonomous robot that will vacuum your house for you. You can set it up, plug it in, hit a button, walk away, come back a couple hours later, and your house is clean. If you go to the next slide. But one of the things about it is, I mean, iRobot won't tell us exactly how it programs its robot, because then we'd all go out and build one. But as you look at it move around the room, one of the first questions that very easily comes to mind is how efficient is it at what it's doing? You know, you could put it in an empty room and have it move around and it would be okay. But to put it in a room like this with a lot of objects, you know, it has some work to do to be able to figure out where it's going to go. So the project that we put together is a 2-week project, and what I really liked about the project that we put together is it was as much about the science concepts that we were talking about, looking at path and speed and motion, as it was about the engineering process itself, so that the students would have some idea of what it is that an engineer actually does and how do they do what they do. So while we were at Langley, this is a clip from a video that we put together. We taped a grid on a floor, and we made some video clips of the Roomba doing its thing, and put together a lesson plan that takes about 2 weeks where the students make observations about the Roomba, try to figure out what it's doing, and then try to figure out how can we really analyze what it's doing and maybe make it do it better. So then we worked with Sharon to create our own simulator that was going to have student input, look at the motion of the Roomba as it goes about the room, collect data, and then propose ideas for what that Roomba could have done that would have been a more optimized path. That's everything. Sorry, I'm just checking my bullets to make sure I said everything I wanted to say. Next slide. So the question then becomes, what have I learned as a result of this experience? What have I learned as I've started to incorporate these ideas into my classroom? This is one of my favorite quotes from last summer, and I promise it's not just because I said it. That ModSim, it's not just a sprinkle on top of the cookie, it's an ingredient. And what I meant when I said that was, in order for modeling and simulation to truly be a good tool and resource for your students, it can't just be an add-on. It can't be like Friday afternoons and I don't feel like, you know, lecturing, so I'm going to have the kids sit at a computer and play with the simulation. It has to be an integral part of the education experience. So we need to, as teachers, rethink how we're teaching students what we teach them. We need to have them learn the same way an engineer does their work. What I realized after coming back from this, you know, it's the same way I learned science in high school, and it's the same way I started teaching science to my students. We teach them a concept, they do a bunch of problems, we beat it until it's a dead horse, and then we take them into a lab and we ask them, confirm what I've taught you. And if they can't confirm what I've taught you, they did the experiment wrong because what I taught them was correct. And there's no part for original learning and original thinking when a student does an experiment like that. And it's so hard because as teachers we're all control freaks and we just want to make sure that they're doing exactly what we tell them to do. But you have to let go, and I've started to let students do the experiment first, or play with the computer first and just push buttons and see what happens, and try to figure things out on your own. And last bullet, that's when things really start to happen, is when you put the learning in the hands of the students and allow them to really explore things, they get a better understanding and their thinking moves forward so much better. And I think that's really the power that modeling and simulation is going to offer our students, is it gives them that opportunity to be able to manipulate things and to be able to control their learning, and therefore I think improve their learning outcomes. Last slide. We wrote our quote on the wall too, and everybody signed it. So modeling and simulation is not just a sprinkle on the cookie, it's an ingredient.